everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sebastian Tremblay, and I will be your moderator. Before we begin, please note that this press conference includes simultaneous and sign language interpretation services. It is available either in full French or in full English. If you are watching live, you can find our stream in each language on YouTube. Simply search our channels at City of Ottawa or Ville d'Ottawa. And note to media outlets joining us on Zoom. If you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon in the bottom menu, then select your preferred language. You can ask your questions in the language of your choice. Today, we will be hearing remarks from Wendy Stephenson, Interim City Manager, Renee Amilcar, General Manager, Transit Services Department, and Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. Available to answer questions from the media, we also have Richard Holder, Director, Engineering Services, Troy Charter, Director, Transit Service Delivery and Rail Operations, Nicolas Trouchon, Chief Executive Officer, Rideau Transit Group, and Enrique Martinez, General Manager, Rideau Transit Maintenance. At this time, I would like to invite Wendy Stephenson, the Interim City Manager, to say a few words.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Bonjour tout le monde. Since the technical problems with the bearings on the O train stop rail service, OC Transpo and experts from around the globe have been working around the clock to investigate the issue and identify what needs to be achieved to safely resume service. And the decision to resume service must be made in unison with our partners, using both their expertise, the expertise engaged by the city, and that of our staff at OC Transpo. It cannot be taken lightly. The safety of our passengers and staff has been and continues to be paramount. And I can assure you that this is and remains our #1 priority. The city has been clear that there are 3 critical criteria that need to be met before the system can be relaunched safely. And it would not be responsible to resume service until these criteria are met. Renee Amilcar, our General Manager of Transit Services Department, is going to provide you with an update today on where we stand with respect to the 3 criteria. And based on the analysis of the testing performed to date and the safety note received by the city, I know what Renee is going to share is not what any of us really wanted to hear today. Again, I want to acknowledge the difficulties that OC Transpo customers have faced and the significant impact this disruption continues to have on our lives and your lives. Your patience and understanding have been pushed beyond what should be expected. And I recognize this is not the level of service our customers and taxpayers expect or deserve. We remain dedicated and committed to fulfilling the public's expectations for a safe and reliable transit system in Ottawa. And I'm now going to pass it over to Renee to provide more details. Renee.
Merci beaucoup, Wendy. Bonsoir, bon après-midi tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is day 12 of the service disruption. Yesterday, when we have met, I said that safety was paramount. For our customers and our employees, nothing is more important than safety. Today, RTG and Alstom advised us that the safety note requires a new condition. The safety note firmly requires that there can be no contact between the train wheel and the restraining rail. Alstom and RTG conducted numerous instrumental boogie tests. You will recall that this involves special sensors mounted on the wheel hubs to measure vibrations and forces while the train travels over the tracks. These tests confirmed the need for additional track infrastructure work to ensure that the wheel and the restraining rail do not make contact. As this condition is not met, we cannot resume service on Monday. As I have said throughout the week, there are 3 key milestones that must be achieved for service to safely resume. The inspection of all rail vehicles, which was completed on July 24th, and we know 6 are undergoing further investigation. The final safety note provided by RTG and Alstom outlining the parameters of the containment plan for the safe operations of Line 1. We know that has now been revised. And delivery of the report from the wheel hub manufacturer Texalis. RTG and Alstom did receive the report from Texalis and are reviewing it now. The decision is not to not return service is related to the safety note, not this report. With RTG and Alstom, our team will be working through the weekend to determine next steps, including a risk assessment to ensure the track infrastructure aligns with the new Alstom safety note. In addition, RTG will continue to change the wheel hub assemblies to increase the number of trains ready to operate on Line 1. On Monday, we will be able to provide more specifics on the plan for this work and when we may be able to safely resume service. For now, I can only estimate that once the risk assessment is complete, it will take 10 days approximately to complete the track infrastructure work. I am very disappointed by this development, and I'm sure our customers will be frustrated by it. I can tell you, I'm sad this afternoon. I'm unhappy to announce you this news. I sincerely apologize for not upholding my promise to gradually resume the service on Monday. But I know this is the right decision to ensure the safety of our customers and employees. We are working as a team to solve these issues. We know what the problem is, and we are working together to fix it. Our focus remains on the safe restoration of service. I would like to ask Mayor Sutcliffe, please, to say a few words at this time. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Merci René et merci à Wendy aussi. Alors,
Thank you. First of all, this is another incredibly frustrating setback for OC Transpo passengers, and I share that frustration. I was planning to take the train on Monday when we hope to gradually return to service. So this really is a significant disappointment. Once again, it's important to underscore that our first priority must be the safety of our passengers. I can assure everyone that the decision to suspend the train service was not taken lightly, and the decision not to resume service on Monday was not taken lightly either. But we cannot proceed without being sure that the system is safe and without the conditions that René laid out earlier this week. Our team of experts, after careful analysis, explicitly stated that 3 critical steps must be completed before we can confidently resume service. As of yet, these criteria have not been fulfilled, and we must meet them before we take any further steps. So, to the residents of Ottawa, I'd like to repeat what I've said previously. With the hardworking staff and OC Transpo, I will ensure that the LRT service is safe and reliable for everyone. This latest setback is incredibly frustrating, but I think we're taking the necessary steps to avoid this happening again. and to allow us to provide the service that residents expect, a service that we've all paid for.
So this is another incredibly frustrating setback for OC Transpo passengers. And I want to say that I share in that frustration. I was planning to take the train on Monday when we hope to start gradually returning to service. This is, to say the least, a significant disappointment. But once again, it is important to underscore that our first priority must be the safety of our passengers. It must always be the safety of our passengers. And I can assure everyone that the decision to suspend the train service was not taken lightly, and the decision not to resume the service on Monday was also not taken lightly. But we can't proceed without being sure the system is safe and without the conditions that Renee laid out earlier this week. Our team of experts, after careful analysis, explicitly stated that there were 3 critical steps that had to be completed before we could confidently resume service of any kind. And as of yet, these criteria have not been fulfilled in full, so we must meet all of them before we can take any further steps. I remain committed to the goal of providing safe, reliable service for the people of Ottawa, and I know the entire team does as well. It's disappointing, to say the least, that we are still not in a position to do that because of the systemic problems that we are still grappling with. But I remain hopeful that with the steps we're taking now, we are addressing the permanent solutions that are required, and that one day we will indeed have safe, reliable service for the people of Ottawa. I want to take a moment to thank the hardworking staff who have been working around the clock to find short-term and permanent solutions. Your dedication to the city and to the people of Ottawa is gratefully appreciated. I want to acknowledge that for many of you, there have been major sacrifices to continue to work on these issues and for long hours. So thank you for all you are doing. To the people of Ottawa, I will repeat what I have said before. I, along with the leadership at City Hall and at OC Transpo, will not rest until we have a train service that is safe and reliable for everyone. This latest setback, again, is incredibly frustrating, but I believe we are taking the appropriate and necessary steps to avoid these events in the future and provide the service that our residents expect, the service that we all paid for. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sutcliffe. Just a note that we now also have
Maintenant, nous avons le conseiller Glenn Gower, qui est le président du comité des transports en commun. J'aimerais demander donc.
with one follow-up. We'll now start with Kimberly Molina at CBC Ottawa.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can go ahead. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to check because it's a different computer. So obviously not what people wanted to hear. So just wondering what this means for Monday's plan. Is it sort of status quo? And what do you say to riders who have been waiting, weeks for the system to be back up and running and are saying that they're really losing trust quite quickly?
Thank you for the question, and I fully supportive of this sentence. However, what I can say is we are doing our best, and we want to put safety first as usual. And I'm working with my team as well to try to augment the quantity of buses for the errand service. So I have enough buses available. So I will work with the team to have more bus drivers to be able to at least improve this service. And we'll come back to you next week on the development of this.
Just to clarify, things are status quo Monday.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess, now that we're going to be closed at least 2 weeks, it's going to be more than 2 weeks, given everything that you've been saying. Is it now time to start thinking about compensating people?
I think I have said that so many times, and seriously, my goal here at OC Transpo is to make sure that I can resume the service as soon as possible. And we can think about a compensation, and this is a council decision, but I would like to at least be able to say, okay, we can compensate for something that works. So let me the time required to be able to deliver a good service. And after that, we can have this discussion for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. We will now go to Avantika Anand at CBC Radio.
Thank you. My question is, what for those who don't understand train lingo, what does it mean if the trail wheels do make contact with the restraining rail? As in, what are the consequences, and what caused this issue?
Sebastian, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, Avantika, there's a lot of background noise. Are you able to speak up a little bit?
Sure. Are you able to hear me clearly now?
Yeah, just speak up a little bit and try to get somewhere quiet.
Sure. My question is, what does it mean, for those who don't understand train lingo, what does it mean if the train wheels do make contact with the restraining rail, as in, what are the consequences, and what caused this issue?
I would like Enrique to answer to that question, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. The restraining rail is a component designed to ensure that the train does not derail in case of an event of excessive lateral force, excess of speed, or any other kind of anomaly in the working of the vehicle. In normal condition, the design of the restraining rail for this project is a passive restraining rail, which means that the restraining rail is only being a component of the dynamic of the train in case there is some kind of attempt to climb the rail. Obviously, this is not happening in the infrastructure. This is not a situation that we are living, but in some points of the infrastructure, because of the adjustment of this component, the restraining rail, the wheel has some contact because of the tolerances and normal parameters of the infrastructure. Due to this contact, there are some forces in the back of the wheel, which are affecting the bearing and is potentially increasing the damage on this component. In that situation, the new update on the safety note requires no contact with the restraining rail to eliminate that forces and eliminate the possibility of having damage in the bearing. After an investigation in the line and doing some tests previous to the back to service, we identified that there were some spots where this contact is present, just a few spots, and we are working on addressing that point.
Just to clarify, what is at risk if the train wheels do make contact with the restraining rail? And as a follow-up question earlier, Renee mentioned it might take 10 days for the track infrastructure. What does that additional work entail at this point?
Yeah, maybe I can take the first part of the question. So when the wheel makes contact to the restraining wheel, that brings an extra force to the vehicle, and that extra force has the bearing to work more stronger. So that's why we don't need any extra forces, because when we have an extra force, that brings a fatigue, and we're not looking for the fatigue. Can you please repeat the second part of your question, please?
Certainly. The second part of my question was, what does the additional track work, the infrastructure work entail at this point in time? You mentioned earlier it would take 10 days to complete.
Enrique, did you?
Yeah. Basically, after these tests we ran before the opening of the line, we identify a few spots where there is contact with the wheel. The work that must be done in that sections is to modify the position and reconfigure the position of the restraining rail in order to avoid that contact. This is the work that is this moment in progress.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avantika. We will now go to Josh Pringle with CTV Ottawa.
Good afternoon. OC Transpo and city officials have spent all week.
Oh, Josh, you accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. OC Transpo and city officials have spent all week talking about the return to service for Monday, July 31st, and then at 4 o'clock today say, sorry, 10 more days. Why wouldn't you wait until all the tests and the reports are in before giving a date on return to service? Because a lot of people are going to be disappointed with this.
Thank you for the question. It's a fair question, but most of customers prefer to know when they can expect the service. So that's why we have taken the decision to share transparently where we were. And I think we were here every day to give you an update. And even myself, yesterday, I was very confident. However, I said yesterday, I don't know what else we can have. So we knew that it was not perfect, but I think it was the right thing to do. And even now, I just said that we'll need approximately 10 days. However, we will need to have a risk assessment, and we'll continue to provide you info daily to make sure that you follow us and you understand the complexity of our job as well.
I'll just add to that, Josh, if you don't mind, just to underscore what Renee said. When I spoke on earlier this week, I talked about the need for transparency and a new level of information being shared with the public. So Renee and her team and all of the contractors who are on this call and Wendy and her team have been abundantly clear with the public throughout this process. We're sharing all the information we have. And people wanted to know earlier this week, what's your best guess about when the service might resume? Renee was very clear about what the conditions were that had to be met for the service to resume next Monday. We were all hoping those conditions would be met. And unfortunately, there's a new condition in place. There's a new requirement in place before one of those conditions can be met. And that's going to take some time to fulfill. So we're being as transparent as possible every step of the way. And part of that transparency is we're sharing what we believe to be our best information on when service might resume with all the conditions that need to be met. And the consequence of that is that sometimes those estimates on return to service are going to change.
I only get a follow-up question, but just 10 days seems like a long time between when you promise service and now you're gonna have to wait at least 10 more days. My second question is, this issue now with the train wheels making contact with the restraining rail, is that an issue that's linked to the wheel hub, or is that an issue that is linked to the tracks, and there could be a track issue that's causing this issue?
Enrique, please.
Well, contact between the wheel and the restraining rail is relatively normal in railway operations. It's not something unusual. And in normal condition, the rolling stock is able to deal with these forces. In the specific situation we have at this moment, we believe that this contact is creating exceptional forces in the wheel, which is potentially a factor contributing to the axle failure. And this is why we are taking this action of eliminating this contact through the reconfiguration of the restraining rail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. On va maintenant à Julien Paquette avec le droit.
Merci, Seb. En fait, plus tôt cette semaine, on nous disait qu'il
Earlier
fallait...
this week, you told us that you were supposed to have an adjustment to the retainer rail, the restraining rail, to reduce the contact with the wheel. If I understand well, you have to eliminate every single contact with the restraining rail. What changed since the beginning of the week? So you went from a little bit of contact to absolutely no contact. Thank you for your question. First of all, we've been playing with this hypothesis for a long time, but we couldn't really understand the phenomenon. The fact that this service has been suspended for 12 days, we were able to optimize our instrumented bogie, and we did many, many tests. We proceeded with the analysis as we were moving forward. Now, Halston said that with this contact, this increased the fatigue within the system, and this increased the loosening of the bearing. Follow-up question? Can you explain a little bit what you will be doing on the rails? How can you ensure there will be no contact between the restraining rail and the train wheel? First of all, the teams will have to work together to make sure how we have to position the restraining rail. I think my colleague Enrique explained it well. We don't want to have any contact. So, like I said, we have to be extremely attentive. We're talking about 1 to 2 millimeters. We're not talking about a big gap. So it's going to be very important to move forward with those tests. RTG will be participating. Afterwards, we'll proceed with the test. We'll go with the instrumented boogie, and we will see if the contact is still there or not. If it's needed, we'll see if it works well, and then we will look again at different emplacement. I think we have 16 different emplacement where we have to move the restraining rail. Thank you so much.
Ottawa citizen.
Hi. So do you believe that you will be completed the risk assessment over the weekend?
Thank you for the question. It's a little bit too early to say that because it's a very technical risk assessment that we have to do. However, definitively we'll work Saturday, Sunday. We're booking our calendar. We have already booked in our calendar to work together, and on Monday we will be able to give you a follow-up.
So it'll be 10 days from the end of the risk assessment, correct?
Correct.
That's the estimate currently?
Correct.
Okay. And one more question. So in those 10 days, how many more cars will you be able to get ready to roll?
So we will continue our plan on the hub replacement. And this is something as well that we will be able to give you a follow-up daily. Normally, we should have two LRVs per 2 days. So this is the plan for now, and we'll continue to focus on that to be able to have more train availables when we will be able to resume the service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. On va maintenant à Jean-Sébastien Marié avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, merci. Madame Amilcar, pouvez-vous nous expliquer?
Ms. Amilcar, could you explain to us what's changed since yesterday? Yesterday, you said you did an inspection of a train. You received a safety note from Alstom. All that we need now is the report. Now you're saying that Alstom has said there are issues, but you received a note from Alstom on the 26th. Was this something I misunderstood or something changed? Thank you for your question. No, it wasn't an error. The new relationship we have with Alstom and RTG now is one where we work in parallel. We work not in silos. We work together now. This means that they give us their draft. We look at it. We provide our comments. Yesterday, we were very close. All that was missing was the Texelis report to tell us whether the deterioration is similar to our tests. But we've continued to do some very, very stringent tests, and Alstom has set up a car with lots of instruments so that we can do additional tests, and that analysis has been studied, and we came to the conclusion that what was a hypothesis in the past is now confirmed. This is something that we've been talking about for a long time. And if you remember, in a previous press conference, we said there's the rail lubrication, and this should allow us to have a much better ride. These are things that we've been looking at, but now the tests have confirmed there's a problem, and Alstom revised its safety note. We have to continue to work this way together. I wouldn't have liked to have had a result today which would have required us to change our hubs. But because we're working together, it means that we're able to actually resolve the problems as they come up. My second question, so we should expect the R1 service to continue for another 12 days. Now the R1 service means that many people have to expect to travel for a much longer time span. We've talked to users today, and don't you think that there should perhaps be an express service because people aren't getting off; they're getting off in downtown. Well, since the start of this crisis, we've always been very, very open to listening to passengers' comments. We've always reacted very, very quickly to those comments. We'll continue over the weekend to think outside the box, and we'll come up with new steps to make sure that passengers can have a respectable level of service. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jean-Sébastien. Charlotte Tremblay from TVA Ottawa Gatineau. Charlotte, over to you. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Please ask your question. Well, what I want to know is the following. Could you tell us in French why the line 1 has been suspended? Thank you very much. Well, you'll remember that I've said that we need to meet three conditions to restore service. All vehicles had to be inspected. That's been done. There were 6 trains were set aside because we wanted to do further investigations. Secondly, we required a safety note from Alstom setting out the new conditions to allow us to provide a safe service. Thirdly, we also require from Texelis the complete report on the hub assembly, which was the cause of this shutdown. In parallel, we worked with Alstom and RTG. And today, we discovered that the restraining wheel or restraining rail, which we thought was perhaps the culprit, but the tests that we've done during the shutdown have actually, in fact, confirmed that when the rail and the vehicle's wheels come into contact, that creates fatigue. It doesn't need to be much contact and just be a bit of a gentle rubbing, but this continual rubbing means that there's fatigue on the hub, and then that creates fatigue on the bearing, and this brings about premature deterioration. This is something we have to avoid. So until you've got these 3 phases completed, you're telling us that the train will be shut down, right? Well, not really. What we're saying today is that we've done an inspection. We received the report as being analyzed. There's now a new condition in the Alstom security note, which means that we have to move the restraining rail. We know what we have to do, but we have to do it carefully. And as I explained earlier, we're talking about millimeters. We're not talking about centimeters, but millimeters. So it has to be done in a very careful fashion. And this will be done over the weekend so that we can come back to you on Monday with further follow-up. And I hope that we'll be able to actually restore service very quickly. Thank you, Charlotte.
A few additional questions from members of the media. So I will ask everyone right now, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will go to you in the order. I see we already have some people with their hands up. So we will start with Julien Paquet à la droite.
Paquet from the droit. For the mayor. Now we've heard today that the restraining rail is part of the design of the system to prevent derailments. And the slightest contact creates fatigue on the wheels and on the bearing assembly. Are you concerned by that? Are you concerned about the ability of the system to properly work? Thank you for your question, Julien. I'm not an engineer, but it is concerning. I am concerned. And I will be concerned until we're able to reestablish safe and reliable service for OC Transpo users. I'm talking to experts on an ongoing basis, and when they bring up issues, I work with them to find a solution to the issue. I will be involved until the issue is resolved. I could just perhaps add, Julien, you shouldn't forget that Alstom is working on the redesign of the axle. It'll be much stronger, much more robust. Now, if there's so even if there's contact, the fatigue will be counteracted on by the strength of the bearing. CBC radio.
Thank you. Previously, when the plan was to return to service on Monday, when the possible plan was that, you had mentioned that the 36 R1 buses, in addition to the 8 single car trains, would be good enough for the ridership at the moment. Now, with the 8 single car trains being taken off the table, I mean, it's kind of obvious that the 36 R1 buses aren't enough for the ridership at the moment. Is there a plan to deploy more?
I will work with my team this weekend and will be very, very creative to see what we can do to improve the service. Yes.
Thank you, Avantika. We will go now to Josh Pringle with CTV Ottawa.
Thank you for taking our questions. Just wondering, is there a chance, like what percentage is there a chance we may not see O train service in August? And would the city consider just shutting things down, no matter how long and how frustrating people get with R1 service, until the issues are fixed and people have a safe, reliable transit system? Has that even been considered, shutting this down indefinitely?
Absolutely not, because I think we're so close, and it's hard to say that today, but we're so close, seriously. And I used to say, I cannot fix things that I don't know if it's broken or not. So now we know what is the problem. So we just need the manpower to be able to do the job. And don't forget, we have a final fix as well. So this is temporarily, and we have the final fix. So more than ever, I can tell you that we are so close. This is so unfortunate today because I was ready to announce the good news, and I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, but we have to stay focused. This is the right decision, and yes, we will have the train very soon. I don't want to speculate. We need this risk assessment, and we will need 10 days to do the job, and we'll keep you updated for sure.
And if I could just add, Josh, Renee, thank you for those comments. I want to add the fact that, I know for Ottawa residents, this feels like yet another setback, a long list of setbacks. We've been through this so many times over the last few years, and their frustration is mounting and their questions are mounting. But I want to underscore what we've been telling you over the course of the last week, which is that we're operating in a different environment now. First of all, we are sharing every single day the latest information with the public, and we're sharing our estimates on when we hope service will resume and what the conditions are for service to resume. So there's complete transparency about all of that, which is why everyone now is kind of along for the roller coaster ride of this whole experience. The other thing that's important is that we are working collaboratively with our partners in the consortium to fix these problems. The relationship is much more cooperative and collaborative now. So we're fixing problems faster. And as Renee just mentioned, we're not just treating the symptoms or the issues that are arising that are interrupting the service. We are working on the long-term solution. So while this feels like another setback, and it is another setback, I hope that when residents step back and look at what's going on right now, they will see, and in the long term, it'll be verified that we are working on the long-term solutions that will once and for all deal with these issues, so that going forward, we will have safe, reliable service. If we were continuing just to do patchwork and fix the short-term issues, then we wouldn't be any closer to a long-term solution. But we're doing both. We're fixing the issues that will allow us to have service restored, but we're also addressing the long-term systemic problems that that are a result of all the issues in the past, so that we can have this service we deserve, the service that we paid for once and for all.
Thank you, Josh. We will go now to Kimberly Molina at CBC Ottawa.
So you guys are talking about 10 more days. So I just want to clarify, does that mean that the service is expected to finally resume on August 7th?
I didn't do the math, but probably, yeah, it's approximately 10 days when we will know, when we will finish the risk assessment.
Sorry, so is that 10 days from today, or is that 10 days from?
When we will finish the risk assessment. So we will start the risk assessment this weekend. And we'll let you know on Monday where we are on it.
Okay. And sorry, are there going to be updates this weekend?
We will send a memo on the service level, because my team and myself will concentrate to work with our collaborators to make sure that we can have this plan as soon as possible to share with you on Monday. So Saturday mornings, Sunday morning, we will send you a quick memo to let you know what is the level of the service, is everything okay? And on Monday, we'll have a full update for you available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. On va maintenant pour la dernière question avec Jean-Sébastien.
Last question, Jean-Sébastien Marier, Radio-Canada. Ms. Amilcar, you said that you finally have a solution. So in the past, there have been derailments, the flat wheels. Are you saying that all that was linked to friction with the restraining rail, and that the issue should once and for all be resolved? You shouldn't mix things up here. The first derailment is linked to what we're talking about today, but the flat wheels was something very, very different. That was resolved. The first derailment was a bearing issue. Now we know, well, we knew that there was a symptom because we knew that the bearing was loose. We didn't know why. Now we know that there's an external force which is exerted on the axle, and this means that the bearing and the axle fatigue much more quickly than they should. We know what the problem is, so we're working to rebuild the axle to make it more robust, stronger. At the same time, we're working on the track structure to minimize the exterior forces, external forces. So we're working on these two issues. We're maximizing the strength of the axle, minimizing the forces. So the derailment was linked to that, right? Yes, it was. Thank you. Thank you.
This concludes our media availability for today. Please do note that more information will be provided at a media availability that is scheduled for Monday. Thank you, everyone. Merci à tous. Have a nice weekend.